Reddit by Reddit recap. Flight attendants and pilots. What NSFW things occur during your jobs? My girlfriend at the time and I once had sex in an airplane bathroom. It was actually quite easy to get in and out undetected, but in retrospect I think we were lucky with the timing. The thing they don't mention is how hard it is to actually have sex in there. Those rooms are tiny. Not pilot or flight attendant, and actually happened during TSA screening. After a weekend of EDC in Vegas, everyone is lined up to go home. Strike up conversation with the girl in front of us and she mentions how she had a surplus of party favors left over from said festival. She said she didn't know what to do with them and decided to take them before getting on the plane. TSA takes one look at her eyes and tells her to lift up her shirt or something like that. Didn't quite get the gist of it, and she lifts up her entire shirt with bra, flashing the TSA agent. She was promptly escorted into secondary. 5 minutes before the plane was due to take off, she ambles on the plane and finds a seat. As a flight engineer in the AF flying out of an island in the Pacific, a sailor had fallen overboard and drowned. The Navy recovered his body a few days later. Since this is downrange, only a body bag is available, not a transport casket. Before takeoff, the loadmaster comes to the cockpit screaming, yelling and babbling. He says the body in the bag is wiggling. Turns out eels have entered his body via his mouth and are wiggling within his body and causing the movement. Pilot here. That stuff mostly happens when we get to the hotel wherever we're overnighting. I act now what I mean, wink wink nudge nudge. Another guy I shared a crash pad with in LGA said he used to bang a FA in one of the bunks when he went over the Atlantic. We both agreed it was awesome, but very dumb. Fireable offense. There's lots of stories like that, but they are all kind of boring after a while. Everyone is telling once in a lifetime type stories. But the most common NSFW thing that happens on airplanes is dudes falling asleep and getting noticeable boners. Not a flight attendant or a pilot, but I was once on a flight where I saw one of the flight attendants giving a BJ to one of the pilots. Now, the thing to keep in mind was this was before 9/11, when the cockpit wasn't kept so securely locked. There was a bit of a bug spreading around the plane, which I was asked to take care of since I was the only doctor on board. I made my way to the cockpit to inform the pilot of the condition of the passengers, and as soon as I opened the door, I see the flight attendant bent over with her head in the pilot's lap. Not me, but a friend who's a flight attendant who came across this really stubborn male passenger who wanted a sanitary pad that he saw the flight attendant hand over to a female passenger, convinced that it was an eye mask thingy you put on before sleeping. Arguing with her about it, she finally gave in and gave the sanitary pad to the guy, who coolly removed the anti-adhesive and stuck it on his eyes and went to sleep. Best friend is a flight attendant. She's seen some things, man, and some stuff. One woman pissed herself. One woman fainted and then pissed herself. Her colleague got caught by a passenger miming a BJ, but not from an angle where you could tell it was a mime. And she'd like you all to know that they see you. Yeah, you, with a blanket. They see. Edit. She's just added to story of the mime BJ that is was also a same-sex mimed BJ. And when the homophobia started flying, they started accidentally dropping drinks on people. So that stain on your cushion might not be piss after all. Flight attendant here. Pilots are hooking up with flight attendants constantly. I've walked in on 2 different guys in the bathroom. Lock it. People. A couple weeks ago I had a lady use the lavabo and didn't even shut the door. I see camel humps daily, the male equivalent of a camel toe. I've dong blocked people trying to get into the Mile High Club. There's also plenty of rumors of pilots and flight attendants hooking up mid-flight, but I myself have never experienced this. When one pilot has to go to the bathroom, a flight attendant will go up in the flight deck. Oh, and last year I had a guy who was drunk on drugs and groped a female passenger. Guy got arrested obviously, and I had to give a statement. My wife and I bought last minute tickets to a family event and could not get seats next to each other. Once we boarded, I convinced the guy sitting next to my wife to switch seats with me. Nice guy takes my assigned seat, which was next to a woman who was apparently suffering from the flu. 5 minutes after takeoff, she projectile vomits, but tried to use a pillow to cover her mouth, which just made the vomit spray out sideways, all over the poor guy. He just sits there for a moment, frozen, and then slowly turns back to look at me with this face that said, "You did this to me and I will forever hate you for it." I offered to buy him a drink but he ignored me. It was a 6-hour flight. I am a test pilot for a small startup. Landed a few weeks ago at a small airport in the middle of nowhere to empty my piss bottle, fill up my water bottle. My right seat wanted to check out the heli that was there. Long Ranger. I went to use the bathroom and he comes running to me. Turns out the 2 medics for the local medevac service were in the heli making bam bam. We got to watch them both run naked from heli to their training station. On the way out over the radio we got asked to never discuss what we saw. Just a plane passenger, but this happened on my last flight. About halfway through, the pilot comes over the intercom and says, "Please come out of the bathroom. Smoking in an airplane is illegal." Naturally, this gets the whole plane on edge. Turns out, it was an old woman who was completely naked and vaping in the bathroom while refusing to come out. They eventually had to break into the bathroom and take her out, which then caused the woman to try and fight the flight attendants. She was arrested as soon as we landed. Not a flight attendant, but I work for an airline and my team receives all the incident reports for what happens in the airplane's airport. Some of the incident reports that came in were so shocking. Every summer we'd have multiple incidents of people having sex on board, in their seats or in the bathroom. That's pretty standard. But here are a few of the most notable ones that came to our team. A woman breastfeeding a kitten, refusing to stop. Yes, you read that correctly. No, I'm not kidding. A woman who exposed her breasts completely and ran up and down the aisles. Drunk man attempting to molest the woman beside him by pretending he was asleep and touching her, falling into her lap. Really, dude? A woman on a red-eye flight asked to stop. No blanket or anything. Just her and her whispering "I" out for all to see. The flight attendant said in her report that she didn't make eye contact, but told the women, "Everyone can see what you are doing and we need you to stop." The women were so embarrassed, gave a panic sorry and stopped. This happened at the airport, but it's my favorite. A male was using the airport washroom and then a fully naked man comes crashing down out of the ceiling right on top of the man using the washroom. The naked man scrambled and climbed right back into the ceiling without saying a word. The man using the washroom was in complete shock and told one of our managers that we have a problem in the washroom. I howled at that. Security and the police couldn't find this guy for the longest time. But when they finally did, he was a homeless guy living in the ceiling, still naked when they found him. He got in because of the construction at the airport. My sister was working at the airport when this happened and the incident report came from the head of security. I giggle every time I think of this. I've had so many WTF moments working in my department. I truly can't believe some of the things that happen. Not a pilot of FA, but I fly between 100 to 150 flights a year. One time I was flying out of a small Midwest airport to Dallas. I roll up to the airport restaurant bar to get a bite and a drink before takeoff. I notice this lady sitting by herself at the bar. A gentleman approaches her. They seem to be hitting it off, flirting, laughing, etc. Time comes to board the plane, and since this was on Southwest Airlines, it was pick your own seat. Naturally they sit next to each other. I am a few rows behind them. Flirting leads to touching, and then kissing. You can see that hands are wandering everywhere. By this point, I am not the only casual observer. About 3 or 4 other guys are looking and laughing. We all bond over their public display. It escalates to a point where she gets up to go to the bathroom. About 30 to 40 seconds later he follows. Apparently they thought that was enough time to be inconspicuous. As he approaches the bathroom she is already in. A flight attendant stands in front of him and says, "No, back to your seat." She knocks on the door and tells the lady to get back to her seat. All the observers are laughing at this point. The flight continues and she is practically mounted on him, doing everything they could possibly do while keeping clothes on. This continues until we land and all deplane. She quickly hurries off the plane. He is a few steps behind her. but she seems to be in a hurry. The other observers and I are talking about it and laughing as we exit the secure area into the baggage claim area. Then we see her, still several steps ahead of the guy, and she runs into the arms of her boyfriend and starts kissing him. Her flight guy just stops dead in his tracks, takes a couple seconds to observe, and then just leaves. I haven't laughed so hard in public with people I had never met prior to or since. Best comment of the day. I have a story that this reminds me of this, but doesn't compare to it. My stepson was 4, goes to the bathroom, and 10 minutes later lets out a scream. Me and my wife run to the bathroom. I jimmy the door open with a small screwdriver we kept above the door for this type of emergency. My stepson is standing there facing the toilet with a fire hose type stream of diarrhea blasting out of his ass all over the cabinet below our sink. I ask him what was wrong, and through his tears he screams, "I can't stop pooping." I then looked around the bathroom. The toilet and the wall behind it had been painted with shit, and it was amazingly high up on both. Of course I mentioned the cabinet, which was blasted. The bathtub and shower curtains along with the door were also coated. I had no idea that this amount of shit could come out of a human being, and here is our 4-year-old standing in the middle of it, and the smell I can't even describe. As I took the boy to the other bathroom to clean him up, I looked at my wife, and then looked at the disaster area. Then I said, "This is yours. We are no longer married."